Okay. Continuing where we left off in the Surangama Sutra, or at the bottom of page 279.
297.
297, thank you. Now that the practicer is free from false anxiety after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in this state of perfect dhyana. But he may be tempted by his delight in it to strive to go deeper in search for restfulness, and so succumb to the heavenly demon who will possess another man. This man, unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma, and also think that he has realized supreme nirvana. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat to teach the Dharma, and will cause each of his listeners to know his own karma. He will tell one of them that though the latter is still living, he is already an animal, or order another to sit on the ground and make him unable to get up. Those present will admire his supernatural powers and submit themselves to him. If one of them thinks of anything, the man knows it at once. He will order them to practice unnecessary austerities in addition to the Buddha's precepts. He will vilify the bhikkhus and curse their followers. He will reveal others' shortcomings without being afraid of ridicule. He will foretell weal and woe, which later materialize. This is the powerful ghost who has become a demon in his old age, and who now comes to trouble the practicer. When he is weary of his misdeeds, he will leave the possessed man. Then both teacher and pupil will suffer the miseries inflicted by the law. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara. But if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into unintermittent health. And just a couple of reminders, we've been reading this section of the sutra for the last several readings, but the demons that we're talking about, the possession that we're talking about, don't take it literally. It's not literally demon literally possessing. Demons are just our thoughts, the thoughts that we allow to continue to exist that are not productive, are the demons, and the fruits of those thoughts are the possession, essentially. And then you'll notice, once he leaves the possessed man, both teacher and pupil will suffer miseries inflicted by the law of karma, the law of now you have to work to undo that thinking that you've let continue to exist. Even though you've already recognized that it's unproductive and abandoned it, it still takes work to root it out completely. Okie dokie.
Now that the practicer is free from false anxiety after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in this state of perfect dhyana. But he may be tempted by his delight in it to strive for more learning in his search for knowledge of his former lives, thereby succumbing to the heavenly demon who immediately possesses another man. This man is unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma, and also think that he himself has realized supreme nirvana. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat to teach the Dharma, and the latter suddenly finds a precious pearl. The demon will either appear as an animal with a pearl and other precious stones, documents and registers in his mouth, which it gives to the man to deceive his listeners, or will hide a bright pearl in the ground to light up the whole place. His listeners will praise the miracle. The possessed man will abstain from food, eating only medicinal herbs, or will take only a hemp seed or a grain of wheat each day. But the demon will cause him to be strong and sturdy. He will vilify the bhikshus and curse their followers. He will reveal other people's shortcomings without being afraid of ridicule. He will reveal secret places where treasures are hidden and where saints live. And those who then go there actually meet strange persons. This is the ghost of the mountains, groves and rivers, who have become a demon in his old age. His aim is to encourage others to break the Buddha's rules, to indulge in lust and give rein to the 5 desires. If he makes progress at the start of his practice, he will eat only herbs and plants, and his actions will be uncertain. His object is to trouble the practicer, and when he is weary of his misdeeds, he will leave the possessed man. Then both teacher and pupil will suffer the miseries inflicted by the law. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara, but if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into the unintermittent hells.
Now that the practicer is free from false anxiety after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in this state of perfect dhyana, but he may be tempted by his delight in it to seek and use the above supernatural powers, thus succumbing to the heavenly demon who immediately possesses another man. This man, unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma, and also think that he has realized supreme nirvana. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat to preach the Dharma. He will hold a ball of fire, which he divides into as many balls as there are listeners, putting one on each of their heads. They will not feel the heat and will not be burned, although the fireballs are several feet high. He also walks on water, sits motionless in the air, enters a bottle or a bag, and walks through the wall. But he is not immune to choppers and swords. He claims to be a Buddha, and though he is a layman, he dares to receive reverence from the bhikshus, cursing their disciples and vilifying the rules of discipline. He likes to disclose other people's shortcomings without being afraid of ridicule. He boasts of his supernatural powers and causes his listeners to see Buddha lands which are false and unreal. He praises carnality and encourages licentious conduct, which he uses to transmit his Dharma. This is one of those strong spirits of the mountains, seas, winds, rivers, and earth, dwelling in grass and plants, or a naga, or decaying seer about to die and become a ghost, whose forms are possessed by other ghosts, one of which now comes to trouble the practicer. When he grows weary of his misdeeds, he will leave the possessed man. Then both teacher and pupil will suffer the miseries inflicted by the law. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara. But if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into the unintermittent hells.
Now that the practicer is free from false anxiety after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in this state of perfect dhyana. But he may be tempted by his delight in it to seek the extinction of suffering, and so searches deeply into the nature of transformation in his search for profound emptiness. As a result, he succumbs to the heavenly demon who immediately possesses another man. This man, unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma and also think that he has realized supreme nirvana. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat to preach the Dharma to his listeners. In their presence, he will disappear suddenly and then descend from the sky, again vanishing and reappearing at will. His body will seem transparent as crystal, and his limbs will be fragrant like sandalwood. His excrement and urine are as hard as rock candy. He breaks the Buddha's rules and despises all monks and nuns. He preaches that the law of causality is invalid and there is annihilation after death, and no such thing as reincarnation or worldly and saintly states. Though he has realized voidness, he indulges in sexual desires and boasts that his followers also realize the void, in which there is neither cause nor effect. This is one of those ghosts and spirits who live for thousands and tens of thousands of years and have become demons in their old age. He now comes to trouble the practicer, and when he grows weary of these misdeeds, he will leave the possessed man. Then both teacher and pupil will suffer the miseries inflicted by the law. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara. But if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into the unintermittent hells.
Now that the practicer is free from false anxiety after his receptiveness has vanished, he finds himself in this state of perfect jhana, but he may be tempted by his delight in it to seek longevity and indulge in tiresome research in his quest for eternity by relinquishing his mortal lot in exchange for immortality. Thus he succumbs to the heavenly demon who immediately possesses another man. This man, unaware that he is possessed, will, as directed, preach the Dharma and also think that he himself has realized supreme Bodhi. He will then come to the practicer's place and take the high seat to teach the Dharma to those present, declaring that he can travel to and from distant places of will. Will then goes thousands of miles away and return to his seat in the twinkling of an eye, bringing things back with him. Or he may show them that for years they will be unable to walk more than a few paces across the room. They will believe him and mistake him for a Buddha. They will then proclaim that all living beings are his children, and that he is a begetter of Buddhas, and that he appears in the world, that he is the primal Buddha and needs no practice to be so. This heavenly demon may be either a jealous female spirit from the Isvara heaven, or a consumer of vitality from the heaven of the four Deva kings, who has not a straightforward mind and uses the practicer's wrong thinking to absorb his vitality. He may not possess another man, but may appear as one with power to wield a vajra, to bestow long life on the practicer, or as a beautiful girl to seduce him, thereby exhausting his vitality. He is delirious and can be distinguished by his incoherent speech, but if the practicer fails to recognize him, he will make mischief. The meditator will suffer and the miseries inflicted by the law. He usually dies from exhaustion before his punishment is carried out. You should first be clear about this temptation to avoid returning to samsara, but if you are deluded and do not recognize it, you will fall into the unintermittent hells.
Ananda, there is no need for you to attain nirvana now. Though you have reached the stage beyond all studies, you should fulfill your vow to re-enter this world in the Dharma ending age, to develop great compassion, and to deliver those living beings whose minds are set on right belief so that they will not be troubled by demons, but realize right knowledge. I have delivered you from samsara, and by carrying out of my order, you will repay your debt of gratitude to the Buddha.
Ananda, the above 10 states of dhyana come from the intermingling of the third aggregate of conception with meditative mind. Deluded and wayward practitioners who do not know their capabilities cannot distinguish these states when they manifest, and wrongly declare that they have attained the holy rank. By doing so, they break the prohibition against lying and will fall into the unintermittent hells. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, you should proclaim this teaching so that living beings will awaken to it, that heavenly demons cannot take advantage of such states, and that all practitioners can be on their guard and realize the Supreme Tao.
Ananda, in his cultivation of samadhi, when the third aggregate of conception ends, the practicer will be free from the usual delusive thinking and will achieve the still and bright state of mind, which is like the clear sky and is always the same whether waking or sleeping, and devoid of the shadows of coarse sense data. To him, the mountains, rivers, great earth, and universe are reflections in a bright mirror, appearing and vanishing without leaving a trace behind. Thus, his mind only reflects externals without being affected by them. This is the one essence in which the fourth aggregate now manifests. The practicer will perceive all living beings of the 12 types of birth in the 10 directions, and though he does not know the true cause of their existence, to him they are all the same state of life. This functioning of mind is like a twinkling mirage that disturbs the clear and is the chief cause of the illusion of the sense organs and data. This is the fourth aggregate which conditions the practicer's meditation.
And we know the fourth aggregate as mental fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
If this sparkling disturbance returns to its serene source, like ripples that settle to become calm and clear water, the aggregate samskara will come to an end, and the practicer will leap above and beyond the kalpa of turgid being, the main cause of which is the undetected subtlety of his wrong thinking. And remember that mental fabrication are thoughts that arise that are not of what you can sense. So they're not of sensory contact with 10 directions. It'd be like me imagining or saying there's something on the other side of this wall, even though I can't see it or sense it. That would be a mental fabrication.
Ananda, you should know that when the practicer has a result of pointed concentration, acquires correct knowledge in his practice of samatha, his mind is settled and clear and can no more be troubled by the 10 classes of demons. Only now can he look exhaustively into the origin of living beings. And his discovery of the subtle disturbance, if he begins to differentiate, he will fall into error because of the two heterodox conceptions of the non-existence of cause. He finds no anterior cause in his investigation. Why? Because he has wiped out the mechanism of life and can now, by means of the 800 merits of his organ of sight, look into the 80,000 kalpas in which all living beings transmigrate from place to place, and beyond which he can see nothing. He then concludes that all living beings exist of themselves without any cause during these 80,000 aeons. And because of this differentiation, he will miss the Buddha's universal knowledge, thereby falling into heresy, which will screen his Bodhi nature.
And you can see that because he is, let's see, what did it say? So you can see how exhaustively looking into the origin of living beings and continuing to try to link the origin of living beings to some kind of cause or existence or non-existence, looking exhaustively, which means exhaustive, right? Which means beyond the skill level, because if you're causing if you're causing a mental or physical exhaustion, that's not skillful. And so it's unskillful to continue this mental fabrication of trying to look into the origin of living beings beyond your skillfulness. So that's why he'll miss the universal knowledge and fall into heresy, because the practice is not about exhaustively looking into the cause or nature of these particular things, like the origin of living beings. So that's no longer practicing, essentially.
Okay, it's unproductive effort then.
Because it's exhaustive. I mean, it's one thing to look into the origin of living beings skillfully, and it's another thing to do it exhaustively.
Okay.
Do you want to switch back? He finds no posterior cause in his investigation. Why? Because he has seen the root of life and concludes that, as always, men beget men, birds birds, that crows are black and storks are white, that men and devas are upright and animals slanting, that their white color does not come from washing, nor their black color from dyes, and that this has been and will be so throughout these 80,000 aeons. Since he never saw Bodhi before, how can he realize it now? He will now conclude that all things come from no cause, so he will miss the Buddhist universal knowledge and will fall into heresy, which will screen his Bodhi nature. You can see this exercise they're doing, he's trying to trace back this idea of living creatures by their physical attributes, maybe. Right? So when you're doing that, you're not practicing Buddhism. So like I could say this carpet is brown, and I know it's brown because I can see that it's brown, and but continuing to say it's brown and exhaustively saying why is it brown is not practice. The practice isn't to understand the physical attributes of the things around us. It's to understand that I'm saying it's brown because I'm seeing that it's brown, and that me seeing that it's brown is causing all of these other things to arise. And maybe with mental fabrication, we can use like the backyard. I know that there's a tree in the backyard. Why do the leaves fall off of the tree? Why don't they fall off of the tree? Looking exhaustively into that and determining that there is no cause for leaves falling off the tree or not falling off the tree. All of that is just wasted effort.
Okay.
Because you're missing the point that it's not about looking at the tree and saying that is a tree. It's because I know it's a tree because of the certain physical attributes. It's about looking at the tree and then working with your mind to see if you can extinguish the thoughts, if you can have Supreme Bodhi while you're looking at the tree. So it's less of a trying to quantify and analyze physical attributes, and more of a trying to say, well, why do I perceive that the trunk of the tree is brown? You know, why do I perceive that this tree doesn't have any leaves? You know, and even then, exhaustively searching into those things isn't the practice either. It's more about looking at the tree and being able to look at the tree and practice extinguishing the form that is tree, the form that is brown trunk, form that is no leaves, without needing a cause in order to justify your practice. I guess this is kind of reminds me of someone who might be looking to justify their own practice instead of experiencing their practice.
Okay. So we're not questioning the rug's brownness. We're recognizing that I see the carpet, I see its physical attributes, but not clinging clinging to an idea of what the carpet means to you or what the carpet is.
Yeah, or even your perception of the carpet.
Yeah.
So you can still have sensory contact with carpet and have nothing arise.
Right.
And that's when you experience the start to store. Sensory contact without any arising.
Good.
So you can see how this whole thing is, and it makes sense that it's under mental fabrication because it is all mental fabrication. It'd be me thinking about how was this carpet made.
Then you just spiral down the rabbit holes that are unproductive.
Yeah. And a lot of times people use that as an excuse to say that I'm Buddhist, I'm Zen, but never practice. Because they want to look like they're practicing. They like the appearances of the practice, but they don't ever dive into what the practice actually is. So they, like these people go around contemplating things, and that's fine. But it all depends on, are you here to practice or are you here to fabricate?
Okay. Now, when he goes into and talks about causality doesn't matter, there is no beginning and end, and all of that, is that kind of where we get like nihilism, where, oh, there is no
It can be misinterpreted as nihilism.
Okay.
Because there is no cause, there is no non-cause. People tend to just make the assumption that means nothing matters, but that's not what it is. So it really is all about your thoughts. And I think that people take this the wrong way because they think about it literally. They think about literally like when you read the Heart Sutra and he says there is no nose, there is no eyes, there is no mouth, there's no ears. He's not literally saying there is like those features don't exist. Just like the Buddha is not saying literally cause and no cause doesn't exist. It's about what's happening in your mind. So, whatever you perceive exists, right? So if I am saying, my nose exists, it's the same thing as saying the carpet is brown. It's the same, aggregates are still arising. So when we say no cause, no non-cause, it's because neither arise, because nothing arises. But it's that paradoxical concept that once you say nothing arises, the arising of nothing arises.
Yeah.
And so the closest thing that we can do is say there is no cause and there is no cause, but we maintain our discerning nature, which the discerning nature, I think, is what makes the clear distinction between our practice and the nihilistic practice.
Yeah.
Because we still retain that discerning nature, which is just the ability to have this sensory contact with the world. It's not about denying sensory contact, denying arisings. It's about being able to make the choice to have that discernment.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your kid's weak.
Oh. Right. Did you the last one?
Sorry.
Oh, I'll finish this one off. I think I read those. The above pertain to the first state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates the non-existence of cause.
Ananda, in his cultivation of samadhi, as a result of pointed concentration, practicer's mind is now settled and can no more be troubled by demons. He can look exhaustively into the origin of all living beings and in his discovery of the subtle disturbance, which continues endlessly. If he begins to differentiate, he will fall into error because of the four heterodox conceptions of universal permanence. By looking exhaustively into the mind and its object, he finds that both are causeless. And since his meditative study enables him to know that in 20,000 aeons, all living beings are subject to the endless round of birth and death without being annihilated, he gives rise to the wrong concept of permanence. By looking exhaustively into the four elements, he finds they exist permanently. And since his meditative study enables him to know that in 40,000 aeons, all living beings preserve their forms, which are not destroyed in spite of their birth and death, he gives rise to the wrong concept of the permanence of the four elements.
So, for example, here, previously in the sutra, the Buddha, he defines what the Tathagata store is by using the four elements. Right? The four elements encompass all of the 10 directions. The 10 directions are anything that we can sense right here and right now. Anything outside of what we can sense is not within the 10 direction. So, when he's saying the wrong permanence of the four elements, he, like, this person is trying to understand what the permanence of the four elements is. But the permanence of the four elements is that Tathagata store. It's not this constant recycling of the literal four elements. The permanence is the supreme Bodhi of seeing everything within the 10 directions as part of the Tathagata store, which is to, see the carpet and not have any arisings, or hear the fan and not have any arisings.
Okay.
That's the true permanence.
By looking exhaustively into the 6 organs and the 7th and 8th consciousnesses, he finds that the origin of mind, intellect, and consciousness is permanent. Thus, his meditative study enables him to know that in 80,000 kalpas, all living beings always preserve this origin, and that it always remains, thereby giving rise to the concept of the permanence. Now I keep going to this. Go ahead.
As the practicer has wiped out the third aggregate completely, the third aggregate being cheat sheet, being perception, he wrongly thinks that life has ceased to flow, and that since his thinking mind has ended, that which now remains is permanent, thus giving rise to the concept of permanence. So, remember, form is just naming, labeling. Feeling is sensory contact, and perception is the combination of form and feeling. So he's saying, that, thinking mind has ended, which is to say that he hasn't realized discerning nature. So it's still not complete. So I know as we're going through this, what the Buddha is teaching now, he's saying, okay, now we're wiping out the aggregate of mental fabrication. And that's fine, but we don't have to go through all of these steps to realize what it is. Because we have the sutra, because we have the teachings, we already know what Supreme Bodhi is. And in Supreme Bodhi, all of the aggregates don't arise. Because if they do arise, you're no longer in Supreme Bodhi. So while this is a good thing to read because it allows us to see what pitfalls might come as we practice. We might encounter these things in our life, because we all have these stages to go through, where we have to make great effort to experience Supreme Bodhi, and then maybe we go through periods of time where it's easy to maintain our Supreme Bodhi, and maybe there are other periods of time where it's hard. We may encounter these challenges, and it's really good to read this, because in those times of challenge we can remember, that this is part of the practice, and that if I stay on the straight path which the Buddha teaches, and I don't succumb to these things that are getting words. If we don't succumb to these things that might be appealing or easy, like in what we just read in the last section, like putting somebody else up on a pedestal and following instead of experiencing. So these are good cautionary tales to look out for. It is nice to read them and kind of think about it, because yes, you can use it as like okay, here's where I am, here's what I need to work on, but I would be very wary of doing that on a regular basis, because then you can get stuck in that mode of constantly needing to know where you are, and then that in and of itself becomes a hindrance to your practice, because you've just created a whole nother thing to overcome. Yeah. Because of his wrong thinking, conception of true permanence. Because of his wrong conception of true permanence, he misses the Buddha's universal knowledge and falls into heresy, which screams his Bodhi nature. The above pertains to the second state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates wrong permanence.
Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of his pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons if he looks exhaustively into the origin of living beings to differentiate as he contemplates the continuous subtle disturbance in their state, he will fall into error because of the four perverse views of the duality of permanence and impermanence.
The practitioner looks into the profound bright mind which pervades everywhere and regards it as his spiritual ego. He finds that his ego, which is bright and unchanging, embraces all the 10 directions, and that all living beings are born and die by themselves in his mind, thereby concluding that it is permanent, and all those subject to birth and death are impermanent.
The practicer, instead of looking into his own mind, contemplates countries which are countless as the Ganges sands, and thereby regards as impermanent those regions which are annihilated in the kalpa of destruction, and as permanent those unaffected by it.
The practicer looks into his mind, which to him is subtle and mysterious like molecules which penetrate everywhere, and whose nature is unchanged, and can subject his body to birth and death simultaneously in every flash of thought. He regards that which does not decay as his permanent ego, and that which is subject to birth and death and flows from his ego as impermanent.
Practicer who knows that after the third aggregate has vanished, the fourth one flows continuously, will regard the latter as permanent and the first three aggregates, which have already ended, as impermanent.
So you can see that this person is looking.
Yeah.
They're looking for Supreme Bodhi, but they haven't found it.
By So differentiating between permanence and impermanence, he falls into heresy which screens his Bodhi nature. The above pertain to the third state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates the duality of permanence and impermanence.
Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons, if the practicer looks exhaustively into the origin of living beings and begins to differentiate, as he contemplates the continuous disturbance in this clear state, he will fall into error because of the following four dual views of finite and infinite. She looks into the origin of life, which flows endlessly, and concludes that the past and future, which he does not see, are finite, and that his present mind, which does not stop, is infinite.
He looks into 80,000 kalpas and sees living beings in this long period of time. But when looking into the time prior, even to that, he sees and hears nothing. He then concludes that the region where he sees and hears nothing is infinite, and the one where there are living beings is finite. The practicer finds that his knowledge reaches everywhere and concludes that since all living beings appear therein, his nature is infinite. As their knowledge do not appear in his, he reasons that their minds are finite as well as their nature.
So you can see how he's using.
I know everything, I'm infinite, and you guys are all finite.
Well, he's finding causes. He's finding causes and conditions to define these concepts. I mean, and we know what boundlessness is.
Yeah.
And boundlessness can't be measured by these kind of causes and conditions. Because being boundless is being in that state of supreme Bodhi, where perception follows the change of form and undergoes its own change. You know, so our perception can still follow carpet is brown, carpet is nothing, and undergo its own change in that, so that it's not like, no, the carpet is brown. Our perception can change with the change of form, and that's how we can perceive the Tathagata store, and that's what is boundless. But searching for this infinite in these causes and conditions and trying to explain it by, while still using.
He's trying to explain it using duality, but
Yeah.
Duality would be inherently erroneous to this practice.
Yeah, because duality doesn't change with the change of form. Where were we? We're in 4?
Yeah.
Okay. As the practitioner looks exhaustively into the fourth aggregate and finds that it ends in emptiness, he infers that each living being partly exists and partly does not, so concludes that all things in the world are half infinite and half finite and half infinite. By so discriminating between the two, finite and infinite, he falls into heresy, which screens his Bodhi nature. The above pertain to the fourth state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates the duality of the finite and infinite.
Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of his pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons, if the practicer looks exhaustively into the origin of beings and begins to differentiate between views when contemplating the continuous subtle disturbance in this clearer state, he will fall into error because of the four confused views about the undying heaven.
As he investigates the origin of transformation, he may fall changing that which varies, unchanging, that which continues, born, that which is visible, annihilated, that which is no more seen, increasing, that which preserves its nature in the process of transformation, decreasing, that whose nature is interrupted by the changing process, existing, that which is created, and non-existent as that which disappears. This is the result of his differentiation of the seen as he contemplates the manifestations of the fourth aggregate. If seekers of the truth call on him for instructions, he will declare, I now both live and die, both exist and do not, both increase and decrease, thus talking wildly to mislead them. And you can see that that's misleading, and I've heard statements like this before from people who are trying to teach, and it is simply that they haven't been able to understand how to get to Supreme Bodhi well enough to teach others what it is and how to get there as well. So while they might have their own experience, they might have realized Supreme Bodhi or not. It's just an ignorance. As the practicer looks exhaustively into his mind, he finds that each thought ceases to exist in a flash and concludes that they are non-existent. If people ask for instruction, his answer consists of one word, nothing, beyond which he says nothing else.
Nothing. We've seen that before many times.
Mhm.
As the practicer looks exhaustively into his mind, he sees the rise of his thoughts and concludes that they exist. If people ask for instruction, his answer consists of the one word something, beyond which he says nothing else. The practicer sees both existence and non-existence and finds that such states are so complicated that they confuse him. If people ask for instruction, he will say the existing comprises the non-existent, but the non-existent does not comprise the existing, in such a perfunctory manner as to prevent exhaustive inquiries. So he avoids the question.
Yeah.
By so discriminating, he causes confusion and so falls into heresy, which screens his Bodhi nature. The above pertain to the fifth state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates confused views about the undying.
Further, in his cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of his pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons, if the practicer looks exhaustively into the origin of living beings and begins to differentiate as he contemplates the endless flow, he will fall into error because of his wrong view of continued existence, of form after death, arising from his upset mind. So he clings firmly to his body and believes that form is ego. He sees that his mind embraces all countries, everywhere, and believes that form is within ego. He sees that form is now restored to follow his ego and believes that ego exists apart from form. He sees that his ego continues to exist in the flow of samskara and believes that it is within form. So you can see form is now restored because
Now he believes it's the opposite now.
yeah, because up further, this is like the successive states, right? Up at the beginning, he got rid of form. Now
He's back to it.
and there you go.
It's a cycle. He's continuously searching and searching to the point that he's going back to old ideas because he doesn't know where else to look.
Well, that's another thing too, is in this practice, you can eliminate form without understanding what you just did.
It's true.
I mean,
You might skip over that part and not recognize it.
you might not recognize it, yeah. Or you might not fully understand what it is and what it means and what to watch for. Because most of the time you're just told to sit and meditate.
Yeah.
How, why, where, what, who, what? Like,
Like I can
Just
sit,
sit
but
there.
what am I doing?
yeah,
Is it a test of tolerance or what? No.
seriously. But like above, most people don't know what to say, right? They don't know how to explain it. So they try to avoid the exhaustive inquiries.
Perfunctory manner.
Because they can't explain it. And a lot of people will say that this sutra shouldn't be studied because it's too esoteric. And that is also just an excuse not to have exhaustive inquiries.
Then just be happy with what you got.
Yeah.
Stop searching.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what we're saying too, though.
But they're saying it as an excuse.
Yeah, it's too hard to do.
Like just be happy and peaceful.
Yeah. Or that will confuse people more. You'll be more confused reading the sutra than you would just not. And
Which that's misleading. It's misleading people. That's not digging.
yeah,
So
that's making an assumption that people aren't going to be smart enough to understand
exactly.
or wise enough to ask questions.
And that's how stuff like this just gets lost because no one reads it.
And every time we read it, I pick up on new things that I didn't pick up on before.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
Oh yeah.
there shouldn't be a fear of not being able to understand.
Man. These are discrimination arising from the belief that form continues to exist after death. Thus, there are 16 kinds of discrimination due to wrong contemplation of the first 4 aggregates.
The first 4, he's listing them out in Sanskrit: form, feeling, perception, and mental fabrication.
Go to 7. From then on, the practicer discriminates between fundamental troubles and fundamental Bodhi as existing side by side without contradicting each other. For this wrong view, that form continues after death. He will fall into heresy that screens his Bodhi nature. The above pertain to the 6th state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates the wrong view that form exists, death.
Further, it is cultivation of samadhi, which, as a result of this pointed concentration of mind, can no more be troubled by demons if the practicer looks into the origin of living beings and begins to differentiate as he contemplates the 4th aggregate, which will vanish in the same way the first 3 did before. He will fall into error because of his wrong view of non-existence of form after death arising from his upset mind. He saw that form was causeless when Rupa vanished, that his mind was free from bondage when Sanja ended. So Rupa is form, Sanja is feeling, and that all links were broken when Vedana, or perception, stopped. He now concludes that once the aggregates are no more, life deprived of Vedana, which is perception, and Sajna, which is feeling, is like grass and plants. Even form does not exist in life. How can there be form after death? So his investigation reveals the non-existence of form after death, with the ensuing 8-fold absence of form. Hence his belief that nirvana has neither cause nor effect, and that all things are void, have only names, and are fundamentally subject to annihilation. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
The difference between nihilism and the annihilation of form.
It's like nothing matters. Nothing has. They're all just empty vessels with names.
Which can be really scary because that can thrust you into a depression if
Yeah.
you're not
if you're not skillful about it and realize what you're doing, because all of a sudden now you're like, so none of this means anything.
Well, this is the importance of the Sangha.
Yeah.
Because it's important to share our practice with each other so that, we don't fall into those pitfalls of annihilation.
Absolutely.
For this wrong view of annihilation after death, he falls into heresy that screens his Bodhi nature. This is the seventh state of heterodox discrimination, which postulates the wrong view of annihilation. All right. And it is 5:30 or 5:27. It's almost 5:30, so I was thinking we should switch gears and go into Sangha share. And mark this end 9, 8, 25.
Yeah.
Is it